Okay guys, so welcome back again. So in this video, we'll be doing a quick complete tutorial on Astro. So Astro allows us to build multi-page application instead of single page applications. So without wasting any time, let's dive into code to see how it's done. So if we go to the terminal here and we do npm create Astro at latest, it would ask us a couple of questions. And of course, you need to have Node.js and npm installed on your system. So only then you can do npm create Astro at latest. And then it asks us a couple of questions. So the project name and how would we like to set up a project. So I simply chose a few best practices, which is also the recommended way from Astro. And then we need to answer a couple of more questions and then we are good to go. Finally, we have our project ready inside the project name which we selected here. And once you open that project inside any code editor, though I'm using VS Code here, it would look something like this. That is, this is the directory structure or the folder structure inside the project here. And to start the project or to start the application or the Astro application, we simply need to use this command here. That is npm start to run Astro dev. So let's do that. So if we do npm start, we see that our application should be running on some port here, and that is localhost port 3000. So if we go to localhost port 3000, we should see our application running here. And it looks like this by default. So now the first thing which we are going to do is to create a new page inside the application. And before we dive into how to create a new page, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel because it motivates me to create more videos like this. So let's close this package.json file. And before we do anything with Astro, if you're using VS Code, then I would highly recommend you to install one extension here, and that is called Astro. It is by the Astro team. So it provides you with better auto completion inside your Astro files. So now if we have a look at the source folder, we have a couple of different folders here and we have a pages folder here. Astro allows us to create pages in a very similar way. That is, if you want to serve an index page, that is this index page here, we simply did that inside the index.astro file. But what if we want to create a new page called about.js, not about.js, but we need to call it about.astro, not .js. So we simply create a new file called about.astro, Astro like this, and we want to serve this page. So what do we write here? We simply need to write here basic HTML or plain old HTML. So if I simply write here h1 and we see hello from about page, and if we save this and watch what would happen if I go to this URL, that is /about, we see that we are getting this h1 here that says hello from h1. And this is how easy it is to create any page inside Astro. Though we could also do a similar thing inside a folder itself. So let's say we want to create a page called contact. So what we can do, we can create a new folder here. Let's call it contact. And inside this contact folder, I would create a new file called index.astro like so. And let's give it an h1 here. And this, let's call it contact page. And let me put in some lorem here like this. And if we save this and we go to the /contact, we should be served with our contact page like this. So we see this, that how easy it is to create pages inside Astro. We can directly create a page inside the pages folder called about.astro or whatever.astro, or else we can create a new folder and then we can create an index.astro file inside this folder to serve the page there by using the folder name here. So now let's say that inside the about.astro page, we want to use some variables. So let me go to the about page here. And let's say we want to render out some variables here. So how do we do that? Because currently we do not see any functional component like React has and like any other framework has. So what we can do, we can write our JavaScript inside these 3 dashes like this. So we have the starting 3 dashes and then we have the ending 3 dashes, and then we can write any variable here. So let's say, let me define a variable called user equal to, let's say, mafia. And then we can render out this variable inside a paragraph, simply like JSX, but it is not JSX, but it is like JSX. And here we can simply write user. So if we save this, we see that we have this variable rendered out here inside our HTML template. And now let's say we have a list here. So let me create an array here. So fruits equal to like an array here. So mango, apple, and guava, like this. And let's say we want to render out a list of these fruits. So what we can do, we can create a UL here. And then here we can again use something like JSX called fruits.map. And here we have an individual fruit like this. And here we can simply render out the li here. So li like this. And here we can simply render out fruit here, fruit like this. So if we save this, we see that we have this list rendered out here inside our HTML page, as we can see here. So this is how easy it is to create variables here. And now if you're wondering that how do we handle the button click events, so let's say we have a button here. Let's say give it a title called click me. And now we want to create an on-click event handler for this button. So what we are typically used to do inside a React or Next.js applications is this, that we simply create a function that is handle click like this, and then we simply do it like this. So 1, 2, 3. And if we pass in this function here, handle click inside this button, this would fail because Astro is not React. So if we do it something like this, that is handle click, it would not even, it would completely fail. So if I save this, we see that we are already getting an error here. And if we click here and if we open our consoles here, we see that we do not get any log statements because this is not the way to handle on-click events inside Astro. So how do we do it? It is pretty simple to do, because if you know JavaScript and you are coming from the background of only using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, then Astro would make much more sense to you than React or any other application. So what we need to do, we need to remove this function from here. So let's save this. And instead of this, we simply create a script tag here like this that we typically do inside an HTML page. And here we can simply say document.get element by ID, and let's give our button an ID here. So let's give it an ID called mbutton. So mbutton like this, and then we can simply get that element here, and then we can simply add an event listener. So event listener, and we can simply call it click, and then we can simply pass in the function here. So let me paste in the function first, or let me directly do it like this. So here we can simply do console.log 1, 2, 3. Let's save this. And if everything goes well, we should be having on click events on our button. So this is how we handle click events for our buttons inside Astro like this. It is pretty simple if you know only JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. And now in the same way, you are wondering that how do we style the application? That is, how do we style this application page? So let's say our h1 has a class called h1, or let's call it heading for now. And we want to give this class some styles. And notice that instead of using class names, we are simply using plain HTML class here, not class names, which we are used to do in React. So again, it is pretty simple. We simply need to define the style here, and we need to define in the class here. And we can say background color, let's say wheat, and let's say color would be red like this. So if we save this, we see that our styles are applied here. So how do we create a component here? So again, it is pretty simple to do. We have a folder called source, and then we have a folder called components, and it is only a recommended way. It is not necessary that you call this folder components. You can call it whatever you like, but typically it is called components. So let's say we want to create a component for this li here. So how do we do that? So let's create a new file here. So fruit.astro like this. So here, what we want to render out? We want to simply render out the list item. So what we want to do, we want to render out the list item. But how do we get the prop here? That is, how do we get the actual fruit here? So again, it is pretty simple to do. We need to use the 3 dashes here, like so. And here, somehow we need to get the prop. And that is called fruit here. And I'm calling it fruit. So we can say const fruit would be equal to astro.props. Like this, and then we simply need to destructure it from astro.props here. So if we save this, and here we need to render out fruit, so we can say fruit like this. And now if we go to about.astro, and instead of rendering out li element here, what we can do, or we can make a copy here and we can keep that for reference here. So here, firstly, we need to import that component, that is fruit.astro. So it is pretty simple to do. We need to go to the very top of our file here, and notice inside the three dashes, we need to import the component and not outside the three dashes. So here we can say import fruit from dot components fruit.astro. And here what we can do, we can say fruit like this, and then we can render out this fruit. But if we save this, we see that nothing is rendered out here because we forgot to pass in the prop here that is necessary for this fruit to be rendered. So what we can do, we can pass in this prop here from about.astro. We can simply say fruit equal to fruit. And if we save this, we see that our elements are, or our fruits are back here inside the list. But you might be wondering that why it did not complain about fruit needs to have a prop, because even if I remove this, this was working here. So to fix this issue, what we need to do, we need to export in an interface for the props. So we need to do it something like this, that is export interface props. And here we would be expecting in a fruit that is of type of a string. So if we save this, and if we go back to about.astro, we see that now it is complaining that fruit needs to be passed in prop here that should be called fruit. So if we do it like this, that is fruit would be equal to this fruit like this. And now if we save this, again we have our fruits back here. So this is how easy it is to create components inside your Astro application. So now let's have a look at one more thing, and that is layouts in Astro. Because if we go to this layouts folder, because we see that we have one more folder inside the source folder that is called layouts. And if we open this folder, we see that we have a layout.astro file. And we see that we have some kind of a HTML skeleton here that has some style here at the bottom. And then we have the typical HTML skeleton here. And then inside the body, we have the slot here. So what this slot means? So if we go to the index.astro file, we see that we have this huge file here. And let me cut it short by removing the UL element from here. And let's go to the about index page. And we see that we have this layout here, or we have this H1 here that says this thing here. And let me also remove this thing from here like this. So now we only have this title here that is coming from the main file here. And then we have something called layout, which is wrapping this main component. So whatever we write inside the layout file would persist inside this component that is encapsulated in its layout here. So if we go to our layout.astro, and here before the body thing here, or before the slot thing here, what I want to do, I want to create a navigation bar. So what I can do, I can create a nav here, and I can create a UL here with some li elements with some anchor tags, and let's call it about like this. And let me copy it a couple of more times. So let's say home would be /home, about would be /about, contact would be /contact, like this. And if we save this, we see that we have a navigation bar at the top, like we see here. So we see that whatever is encapsulated inside the layout, inside the index.astro file, that is this main thing here, is simply spitted out inside this slot here. So what more we can do, we can simply wrap our about component, that is this about component, inside this layout itself, so that it also has a navigation bar which we can see inside the index file, or which we can see inside the layout.astro. That is, we want to have this navigation bar inside the about page also. So it is pretty simple to do. We can simply go to our about page, and here we can simply pass in the layout here like this, and we can wrap our about component inside the layout file. But now we see that it is giving us an error here, which means that we need to pass some kind of a prop here. And it means that we need to pass in some kind of a page title here, as it says here that it expects in a prop here called title. So we can either we can simply provide a default value for this title here to be equal to an empty string, then this error would be gone from here. So, and then we need to make this prop as optional here, and then that error should be removed from there, that is from the layout file. But instead, if we want to pass in a page title for every page, so what we can do, we can pass in a page title here. So we can say title would be about, and if we save this, we see that now we get a page title here at the very top, and now our about page is rendered inside this layout thing here, and we have our navigation bar. And now you must have wondered that why I am using simply hrefs here to simply go to other pages, because in Astro we do not have some kind of a link as we do have in Next.js or React. We simply use plain HTML links or plain HTML anchor tags to route to different pages, because it is a multi-page application and it is not a single page application. So therefore we need to use simply hrefs with anchor tags to route inside our application. So now let's see one more thing, that is how do we fetch data inside our application. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new folder called posts, and here inside the post folder I'm going to create a new file called index.astro like this. And now let me go to the layout.astro file and let me create one more route here that should be called posts, and this should take us to posts like this. And if we go to the post index route, let me simply render out h1 here that simply say display or simply say posts like this. So if we save this and we go to the post route, we see that we have posts here. And again, we want to wrap this inside our layout component because I want to give this page a title also. So let me give it a title, and we also want to have a navigation bar at the top. So let's call it posts like this. And we see that we have our navigation bar here at the very top. So now to demonstrate data fetching inside Astro, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the JSON placeholder API. So JSON placeholder api.typecode.com, and it should be this thing here, and let me show it to you. So if we go to /posts, we get back a list of 100 posts like this. We get back an array of 100 posts. So this is the URL which I'm going to use inside our application. So to fetch data inside Astro, what do we need to do? We need to simply say const response equal to await, because we can use first level await inside an Astro file, and we can say fetch the URL here like this, and then we can simply say, or we can simply say const post equal to await response.json like this, and then we can simply render out the post inside the pre tags here. So we can simply say json.stringify post null 2. So if we save this and if we go to our post page, we see that we have rendered out all the 100 posts from that API. And if you're wondering that you have a database and you need to fetch data from that database, then you can simply write that database code here inside these 3 dashes, and then it would fetch data from that database. So this is how easy it is to render out these posts. And now let's say we want to route to a different post. That is, if I go to this post here, and if we go to 2 here, we see that we are getting data for only this post 2. So let's see that how do we use route parameters inside Astro. So instead of json.stringify, let me render out a UL here. Let me render out an li here. So what we can do, we can simply say post.map, not main, but map post. And again, we can simply provide a type for this post here so that we have better auto completion here. But I'm not going to do that. I'm simply using it as any here. So post as any like this. And here I can say return in li like this. And then maybe what I can do, I can simply render out an anchor tag here that should take us to / let me use template literal here, or template string here. So post And then we can simply say, and this should be inside curly braces, and here we can simply say post.id. So post.id, and this should be forward slash post.id, because we need to go to forward slash post, and then we need to handle this post.id thing. And here we can simply spit out the post.title. So post.title, like this. So if I save this, we see that we have this list of all the posts. But if we go to any of the route here or any of the path here, we see that this page is not found here, because we have not handled that slug here. That is forwards. That is one here. So how do we do that? It is pretty simple to do. We simply need to go inside the post folder here, and we need to create a new file here. And inside box bracket, we need to write the name of the slug that we expect. And we are expecting an ID. So I'm simply calling it an ID here, though you can call it slug or whatever you like. So Astro. So inside the box bracket, we write the slug and dot Astro file. And then we can simply use the layout component again. So layout, and if we go top, we see that this layout has been imported inside the three dashes. And here we can simply pass in the title here, and for the title, let me pass in title here, that is individual post. And here we simply want to render out the data inside the pre-tags. But how do we get the data exactly? Or let me simply render out the h1 here. So h1, so that we can see that how do we get the slug here. So we can say, so post id is, and here we can simply pass in the id here, like this. And if we save this, this would still not work, because we do not have an ID here. So to get the ID, what we can do, we can go here at the very top, and there are two ways to like make your Astro application. Either you can make this route as a dynamic route, or you can make this route as a route which is compiled and built at runtime. So first, let's see that how do we make this as a dynamic route so that we can create pages dynamically. So we can say const ID, that is we are destructuring from astro.params, like this. And if we save this, we would be still getting an error here. So now to make this thing work, we need to go to astroconfig.mjs file. And here we need to enable the server-side rendering by doing output to be server, like this. So if I save this and if I reload the page, we see that now we get the ID here, that is post ID is 1. And if we go to back to post, and if we go to any other post, we see that we are getting the ID of the post. But if we want to make our application static, that is, we want to generate this page statically at build time. So it is pretty simple to do. So firstly, let me comment out this output to be server. And now whatever we need to do, we need to export in a function here called getStaticPaths, just like Next.js, so that all the routes inside this post and id.astro are built at runtime. So to do that, what we need to do, we can simply do it like this. So we need to export in a function here. So export async function getStaticPaths, because these paths should be generated at build time. And here we can simply say const response, or let me copy it from the index.astro file. That would be like much more easier to do, or much more faster to do. So because we need to generate all the paths here, and now we have this post here by getting await response.json similarly. And then we need to return something from here. We need to create an array of params or paths. So we can say const paths equal to post.map, like this. And then we have an individual post with a type of any, and let me put it in braces here, like this. And here we can simply say return params, and here we need to pass in the ID, because and this ID needs to be same as this ID here. If you were using slug.astro, then this should be slug here, but we are using ID, so I'm passing an ID here. And here we can simply pass in the post.id here, like this. And then finally we need to return paths from here, like this. So if I save this, we see that we still get this ID not defined, But now what we can do, now we can extract this ID from this params thing here, and this would be working here. So now we see that we get this post with ID is 30 even without using server-side rendering. So if we go back and if we go to any other route, we see that we get this thing here. And if we manually go to any other route which is not defined inside this params thing, let's say 101 because that is not defined, so we get a not found error here. So this is how easy it is to get individual paths or create your posts at build time or your pages at build time. So now let's see one more thing, and that is nested layouts. So let me create one new file here called post layout.astro like this. So let's say we want to create some kind of a nested layout. So let's make a div here like this, and here we can simply say nested post layout, and then we want to spit out everything from this post page, from this post index page and this post page inside this post layout. So what we can do, we need to create a slot here like this, and we can do it like this also. So let's save this, and if we go to this individual index.astro, we can nest this layout here. So we can say post layout like this, and let me cut it and let me encapsulate it here like this, and the say, and if I go to /post, we see that we do not get that thing. So because we are on the individual post, but if we go to this post page here, we see that nested post layout. So we have like created a separate layout for this post layout, or we created a nested post layout, and we can simply use this post layout inside our individual post also. So here we can again do it like this. So post layout, and let's save this, and obviously you need to import this post layout from layout post.astro. So if we save this and if we go to any other page, we see that we again have a nested layout. And if you're wondering that how do we get the data for this post 6, it is pretty simple. So once we have the ID here, we can get the data from that ID. So we can say, or we can use the same thing here. So let's copy it and let's paste it here. So this would be / the ID of the post. So $ID like this, and we need to use template string here like this, and then this should be a post here, and we can simply spit out the post here. So we can simply do it inside a pre tag here. So json.stringify post comma null comma 2. So let's save this, and we see that we have the data for the individual post. So this again you can do from your database if you have a database, but this is only for demonstration that this is how we get data for the individual post ID here. And now there is one more thing, that is API routes inside Astro, which may be a call for the next video. So that's all about this video. So if you have liked the video, to hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel. It motivates me a lot. So thank you, bye bye, tata, take care, and have a good day and have a great day.